Right, back tonight here on In Focus. It seems paperwork is once again delaying government's efforts of putting an end to South Africa's energy crisis. The Electricity Regulation Amendment Bill, which is still before lawmakers, is seen by energy experts and politicians alike as a solution to the crippling blackouts. Sahlulele Luzipo, chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy, joins us now. He says the draft law could be discussed by members of parliament, or couldn't actually be discussed today because it has yet to be tabled because of some delays. Chairperson, good evening and thank you very much for coming on this evening. It was approved, from what I see, by Cabinet in March already. We are now in August. What has taken so long? What's the delay?
Well, good evening to you, Chairman. Good evening to your viewership. Well, it will be difficult for me to answer that question. We are a portfolio committee of the National Assembly. In terms of the procedure, as far as legislation is concerned, we can only interact with the legislation when it is referred to the portfolio committee. I think the issue that has been a confusion was that in terms of what was put for public, you will recall Parliament is open to the public, except if there is a requirement to do differently. So Parliament had made, I think on the 20th of July, what is an advert that the bill has been received and therefore has been referred to the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy. The reality is that that had not happened. According to the legal advice we've received, what was referred was what we would call an intention. And therefore the Portfolio Committee can't do anything until that bill is officially referred to itself. So from that period in March up until now, it's a take that the executive can be able to account for, including the different stages that the bill will have to go through before it arrives in Parliament. The second thing that was a bit complication, but we hope we'll deal with it as time goes on, is that it was simultaneously referred to the National Assembly and also to the National Council of Provinces. Where the normal procedure, as far as I know, is that you first refer to the National Assembly. When the National Assembly would follow its own normal processes, including then referring the bill to the National Assembly for adoption, it will then be referred to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. But yes, joint rules at times they do allow that process to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's clear to me that you are saying that as far as the path is concerned, in terms of responsibility, it's not the Portfolio Committee's role to table this in Parliament. So in terms of the path that needs to be clearly followed, I mean, once Cabinet has approved, what is your thinking? Who are the people responsible to tabling the bill in Parliament, particularly when the presidency says they have approved this and they are going to take this to Parliament and it will be, listen to this, Nkumbuzo Chabeni is saying, it will be prioritized.
I don't want to speak on behalf of Parliament also. I'm not a presiding officer. Probably the Speaker and the Chair of the National Assembly can do this. But to quickly say what is the anticipated process. The anticipated process is that when the bill it has been referred to the National Assembly, the actual copy of the bill now, remember there is a referral, then the actual copy of the bill will go together with that referral of the bill. They will have what we call the sort of, let me just borrow a word, what we would call a summary notes of what the bill is all about and so forth and so forth. Then the Speaker, having received the bill, will refer it to the relevant committee including through the bill's office. At this stage, the bill's office does not have that bill. Yes, I've now learned that one of the reasons is that the bill had to go back to the chief state law advisors for recertification on the basis of certain, let me again say, certain additions or amendments that were made on the initial referral of the bill, which means the bill now, when it probably went to cabinet, when it went through what they call the Sahlulele process, it then had new additions, and it then required that those new additions must be satisfied. I can speak though that it's just an information that we receive. All what
new additions from who, Chairperson? Who would have added after cabinet is approved?
There is something that is called, I think there is something that is called, which I think is working with Netcom, that says when the bill has been referred to has been coming, in order to make sure that it complies with the requirement of legislation, in order also to address issues of potential bottlenecks or wordings and other things, it will have to go through the process of what the committee called Sahlulele. My assumption is that Sahlulele process is the one that says, does the bill satisfy the requirements of being referred to the National Assembly? And in this case, I can't answer for the executive, but the response that we received, it had to go through, call it quality assurance. It had to go through quality assurance, and that is why this chief state law advisor had to do.
Is there political heads that are involved in that process at all? What's happening at the Sahlulele process? Is it a bunch of lawyers who read and say whether it's attached to legislation? Is there a chance of political interference where this is now being delayed deliberately?
I wouldn't use that word, but remember, Chair, you are talking to someone who is down on the ladder. Probably maybe the Speaker's office can help. The issue for us that we've raised, and we hope at the level of the Programming Committee of Parliament they'll take into cognizance. The concern that we're having is that if you are bringing in legislation at this time of the year, and this has got nothing to do with the fact that we are unpatriotic, but we need also to be honest to South Africans. Any bill that you're going to bring now, the chances of us dealing with that bill and finish it are very minimal. We may be able to do it in the National Assembly, but we are not sure about our colleagues in the National Council of Provinces. Remember, when the bill, if it finally arrives to us, then the bill, we may even have to make a consideration whether by its implication it will not affect other institutions, for instance, traditional leadership. Then we will then have to refer that bill if, according to our own analysis and assessment, it requires to be referred to the National House of Traditional Leaders. Secondly, we have to do what is called appeal for written submission, call for written submission. When that process you have done, you'll have then to invite those written people who have made written submission, those who would want to do oral submission on the written submission. After that, you still have to conduct or to do what we call public hearings. Now, therefore, it actually means the potential of doing public hearings can only be either in November, the earliest, and you will understand what will happen. But also pushing to pass a bill just on the eve of elections has got its own also political shortcomings.
Yeah. But I suppose elections is the last thing on our minds. What is key to us is the promise that has been made to say that the energy crisis situation is going to be resolved at least before the end of this year. So if you're saying we still might not have this bill passed, are you foreseeing that, for example, that could hamper things like the creation of a transmission system operator, the provision of an electricity trading platform, which from NERSA's point of view is the one part that would still be missing, even though we would have broken down Eskom into three parts. And of course, access to the transmission network is also quite key, as part of the key things that were part of this bill and quite critical.
Let me say, the legislation making process, both national and the National Council of Provinces, for me, I would say on average, it requires 12 months to do it effectively. The point I was raising about elections, is the fact that whether we deny it, we like it or not, the reality is that you have a potential that at some point Parliament will have to come to an end, probably a month or so before elections. One of the things we must never do is to then do things rush, simply because we are confronted by that reality. My take is, if you do that legislation and has to go through these processes, it's not only for us conducting public hearings. We also have to take into consideration, for instance, that the National Council of Provinces may or will be required to do so. The interest on this bill on its own also says, even from our side as a portfolio committee when it arrived, you can imagine, I was told even today that already we have received submission on a bill that we have not said. So it does tell you how much South Africans are so eager to see this bill. Even when, which we hope we could be able to do, when that bill it would have gone through and all these stages, including the NCOP, it means it will also require to get the satisfaction of the president. And therefore, it actually means if the president has got reservations about the bill, he or she may refer it back to the portfolio committee or to the select committee to undertake particular processes. Yes, for what you are saying, therefore, it doesn't mean that if the bill is passed, even next year in March or April, it will come into effect in March or April. It will still have to go through the normal processes of satisfaction. Only when the president would have signed that bill into law, it will then start to be an operative, what we'll call an act of parliament.
In simple terms, basically, what you were alerting us, Chairperson, is that we are not going to have this bill by the end of the year, and that's pretty much very clear to you right now.
I'm not a pessimist, James. No, I'm not a pessimist.
It's just a fact. You're not being pessimistic, but you are saying to us we must forget about having this bill done by the end of the year.
No. I'm saying that bill, if it has to go through and become law, it will also require us as legislators, including our supervisors in the form of the presiding officers, as well as our principals, that it will require that agency that it deserves. For instance, for 9 provinces, let's say usually we used to take weekends. It actually means you need after the 13th, because it will be very difficult to give a short notice for written submissions. But in essence, it means when we have started with the public hearings, we have got 9 provinces. It will actually mean you will need 9 weeks from the National Assembly to be able to conduct those public hearings, except if a special arrangement is done for this portfolio committee in the interest of the country. We don't know what will the programming committee do with regard to this bill.
Yes.
That's where I would say I agree, not that other bills may not be important, but the level of interest in this bill will then say it will require to be highly prioritized. It will also require some degree of dedication to those who will be taking the responsibility of making sure that the bill at the end of the day becomes law. So I wouldn't say it's going to be a cumbersome task, but at this stage I can't say it will be impossible to do so.
Chairperson, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Sahlulele Luzipo, Chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources and Energy.